In this video, we wanted to cover a great dish from the Yunnan province, a dish called sanduo or three chops. It's a home cooking classic, absolutely fire with rice, and called three chops. Well, because you just chop up some pork, chop up some chili, chop up some other third thing, and then stir fry it all together. But that third thing is what names a specific variant of the dish. If you use tomato, it's called HONGSANDUO or red three chops. If you use dried and fermented mustard, it's called HEISANDUO or black three chops. And if you use salted egg, or in some families tofu, it's called Baijiu or white three chops. They all share a similar logic. They're pretty easy and we'll go over them all. But at first, I do want to talk a little bit about mincing up pork, which, depending, might or might not end up being the bulk of your effort here. Because today, we are going to be doing what we pretty much always do and mincing this by hand. Now, I am aware that whenever we call for that, a big chunk of you will just close out of the tab and nope right out of this recipe. And I get it. This is supposed to be an easier dish, and most Western cooking's designed around ground meat from the supermarket and not mincing by hand. But I promise that we're not trying to be obnoxious on purpose. It's just that again and again, when we're testing these recipes, the hand-minced ones just end up tasting right for a stir-fry. Basically, a hand mince will be a bit snappier, kind of closer in texture to something like a sausage hash, and ground meat a little more hamburger helper. But different people are different. We might just be crazy, and obviously the internet is filled with tons of stir-fries starting from ground meat. So if you are happy with the stuff, use it. Jump forward in the video to this point, and really, forget I said anything. But if you are like us, or even just a little curious what we're off about, in this video we wanted to really drill down and hopefully demystify that process a bit. But before we do, definitely know that this is absolutely something that you can batch prep. If you like the hand mince like we do, you can take an hour or so on a Saturday morning, do a huge batch, portion it out into little baggies, and freeze. For a stir fry, it's just as good thawed. So then, with that out of the way, for this specific dish, we are going to be working from 250 grams of pork belly, or you can also use Boston butt or a mix if you wanted something a little leaner. Now, step one to any hand mince is, probably annoyingly, first getting it into a dice. Of course, the size of that dice is ultimately up to you though. The smaller you get it, the more time you devote to this, the less time you'll need mincing, and vice versa. So I like going a finer dice at first, but if you don't mind settling in for a bit when you're mincing, big chunks, also okay. That said, once you're done there, equipment-wise, you will need some sort of heavier knife for this next step. A Western chef's knife is likely a touch too light, but a Chinese chef's knife, a Western-style cleaver, or, I don't know, a machete, all okay. Either way, there's going to be two common mincing styles that you can choose from, which I'll call single knife and double knife. For the single knife method, first, put the knife in your hand, but don't grip it like usual. Instead, hold it near the end of the handle. Do so ever so slightly loose, then put that hand inside of your other for a good grip. The idea here is for the knife to have a touch of rotational momentum, allowing you to chop closer to your board and avoid the potential pork splatter. What I like to do is flatten this all out, turn 45 degrees and go through the whole thing in one direction, then turn 90 degrees and then do the other. Then at this point, fold the meat over itself to get it back into a bit of a ball shape, and then repeat the process. If you're starting from a fine dice, front to back, this gets me about where I want to be in roughly 7 or 8 minutes. Option number 2, the double knife method. Now, the basic logic here is the same. Hold the thing in a similar way because you'll want a touch of rotation. The idea here, though, is to get it into a bit of a rhythm. Chop one after another, almost like you were playing a set of drums. You'll still need to fold the thing over itself, continuing in the same way. But the advantage of this route is that if you can get in a groove, it will shave off a bit of time. To get where we want to go with this method, it'll only take about 5 minutes if working from that fine dice. Something like this is perfect. Then, for specifically a stir fry, Something that I personally like doing is then giving it all a couple slices in each direction to potentially break apart any stray long fibers. And then this is good to go. And again, batch prep, freeze, also great. Now, for all of our sanduos today then, it'll be basically the same marinade. Just for flavor, quarter teaspoon salt, quarter teaspoon Sichuan peppercorn powder, eighth teaspoon white pepper powder, eighth teaspoon 5-spice powder, half teaspoon soy sauce, half teaspoon Liaojiu aka Shaoxing wine, and give that a good mix and set it aside. Then, second fixed leg of your sanduo, that chili pepper. Now, what we'll be using today is a variety of fresh chili called luosajiao or Chinese screw pepper. But definitely use any tasty, moderately spicy chili that's local to you. Serranos would be nice, jalapenos maybe a touch mild, but are nice and fragrant. Whatever route you go, just dice up 100 grams in total. For us, we also like ours a little on the spicier side, especially the tomato one. So we'll also supplement that with 7 very hot Thai bird's eye chilies. But again, use what makes sense for you. Then with that sorted, now let's whip up some sanduos. So, first up, the tomato one, which as an aside actually seems pretty Western supermarket friendly as long as you sub the Chinese wines. To make it, we'll be working from 2 medium tomatoes, or about 250 grams worth. Optionally remove a touch of the gunk, and then dice the rest into 1 centimeter pieces, and set that aside. Then, to fry it, in a wok or whatever vessel I guess, first toss in about 4 to 5 tablespoons of oil and give that a swirl. Then, over a medium-low flame, toss in your previously marinated pork and begin to break it up. Once you're content that it's no longer one big meatball, swap the flame to medium-high and continue to fry. And for a mince, I personally like to continuously sorta break it up while frying it. Then, once it's gotten ever so slightly browned and a touch of the lard from the belly's rendered out, after about 5 minutes, remove and let the oil drain out. Then take out the excess oil, as we'll only need about 3 tablespoons for the frying. But definitely don't toss that extra. It's porky, delicious, and fantastic to fry up some vegetables in. Then, over a high flame, toss in your now chopped tomatoes and stir fry that until it's started to release a touch of its water, or about 1 minute. Then, toss in a ½ inch worth of minced ginger, together with the spicy chilies if applicable. Stir fry for about 30 seconds, then toss in the pork and stir fry for another 30 seconds. At this point, swirl in about 1 tablespoon of Baijiu or your wine of choice. Quick mix, then in with your medium chilies. Another 30-second fry till fragrant, then swirl in a ½ tablespoon soy sauce. Quick mix, season with a ½ teaspoon salt, quarter teaspoon sugar, and a quarter teaspoon MSG. If you wanted a touch on the saucier side, and we did, optionally swirl in 2 tablespoons of water. And then once that's combined, out. HONGSANDUO, done. Second sanduo route, and probably the second most famous, HONGSANDUO or the black 3 chops. Now, this dish uses a very specific Yunnan style of dried fermented mustard called meigui datoucai, which is pretty difficult to find outside of Yunnan. So instead, we'll be supping that with Cantonese datoucai, which is really quite similar, and if you can't find that, either mei cai or Hunan grandmother vegetable would also hit similar notes. We'll just be using 125 grams worth, so give that a good rinse and then chop it into a fine dice. Then get a small pot of water up to a boil and blanch that for about 30 seconds. Out, and then now we can make some HONGSANDUO. So, just marinate your pork in the same way as before, and pre-fry your pork, again, same way as before. Then, to fry it all up in the same 3 tablespoons of oil over the same high flame, give your datoucai or pickled veg of choice a fry for about 1 minute until fragrant. Then drop in a ½ inch minced ginger together with the spicy chilies. Quick 30-second fry, then back in with the pork. Another 30-second fry, tablespoon Baijiu or whatever wine you got. Quick mix, mild chilies in, another 30-second fry, ½ tablespoon soy sauce, good mix, seasoning, which will be on the top of the screen, then a final mix, and out. HONGSANDUO, done. Now, final variant today is going to be that baijiu, which, again, depending on the family, uses either salted egg or tofu for the so-called white component. For us today, we're going to be going the salted egg route 3 total, and chopping it into a rough dice. Then, again, marinate your pork in the same way as before, optionally sans soy sauce if you want it a little whiter, and pre-fry the pork in the same way. Then, as maybe you could guess, 3 tablespoons oil, high flame, toss in the salted eggs and fry those for about 30 seconds, or until the yolks just started to try to emulsify with that oil. Then ginger and spicy chilies in, quick mix, pork in, quick mix, tablespoon Baijiu, another mix, medium chilies, and then fry that all for about 30 seconds. Swirl in a predictable half tablespoon soy sauce, quick fry, seasoning, which is at the top of the screen, final mix, and out. And now finally, the baijiu also done.
So, meat chopping is something that I actually started doing from a very early age. Around 11, 12, I started helping my parents in the kitchen. And because I love the Cantonese steamed meat cake so much, so they would just make me chop up the meat for the steamed meat cake. And it's just something very easy. Yeah, if you have a kid, let them do it. Why not? So right, as always, recipe in the description box. A big thank you for everyone that's supporting us on Patreon, and of course, subscribe for more Chinese cooking videos.